And good morning. We're live on YouTube and X. We want to be live on Facebook too. This is the Falcons Podcast. We're going to bring in Atlanta Falcons SI on the old Metasphere, and then we'll get started here on a gorgeous Wednesday morning. It is still Victory Week here in Atlanta, and we're good to go. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. My name is Scott Kennedy. I will be your host today as we go live and have the conversation with you. Did we decide on Dirty Bird Nation? Was that something? I saw some of the votes last week. It's like we don't really have the Eagles flock or whatever it is, the Broncos country. That one's a definitive. If you say Broncos Nation, they get all touchy. We don't really have a definitive. Dirty Bird Nation, Falcons country, Falcons Nation. I'm not really sure what it is. It's Braves country. We know that one. But I kind of like Dirty Bird Nation, and as Justin says right off the bat, rise the hell up. Yes, sir. Here we go. But we do go live every Monday and Wednesday, and now Tuesday and Thursday evenings, because we like having the conversation with y'all. So I'm going to say hello to some folks, but first off, I kind of want to lay out the show. It's just going to be me today, so I'm going to be counting on y'all for being interactive and letting me know what you want to talk about. Troy Green says, how live are we on Facebook? We just started, Troy, so welcome in. And let's see here. So some of the things I want to get into. First off, we'll get into the Carolina Panthers game. Bryce Young, Carolina Panthers. Derek Brown, A'Shawn Robinson, that defense, 0-2 Panthers out in Charlotte. But then we'll hit in some news factors. There's some former quarterbacks in the news with some teams that have connections to Atlanta, including the Vikings, the Commanders. ESPN came up with the biggest kind of surprises? Is it real or is it fake as far as they called it a Mirage, which a Mirage is fake? For one of the early surprises for each team, and for the Atlanta Falcons, they chose the pass rush. Is it real or a mirage? And we'll get into that one and on certain things. Want to get into a little bit of the PFF grades. I kind of called them out on X a little bit, but not why you might think. So we'll get into that one as well. NFL power rankings, ESPN power rankings. We can get into all of that and anything that you want to get into. But first, let's say hello to some folks that have come in. One of the folks I saw come in first is Dirty Bird Star. And if you notice, if you saw his comments scroll by, he's got a little falcon right next to his Dirty Bird Star. It shows up as just a different type of thing on here when it comes through StreamYard, but on YouTube, it comes in as a little falcon. That means he's a member. So I want to say thank you to Dirty Bird Star for joining up as a member last week. And if you'd like to become a member and support the show, and starting next week, I will start doing some members only videos, some shorts, some breaking news type stuff, just a quick hitter on that. So we will offer extra content too, but it's a great way to support the show, great way to support the Falcons podcast and keep us doing what we do here. And just one easy benefit is you get your little bird, you get your little falcon next to your name to show that you are a supporter of their show. So thank you, Dirty Bird Star. And it is if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the comments, and then usually where you watch it underneath, it can say like join. That's the button you want to hit. And then the final thing is I'll drop the link into the chat here real quick. It goes to all of the three places we're streaming. If you want to become a member, I certainly appreciate it. It's a big help. So thank you very much, Dirty Bird Star, for joining last week. Dantes is here. He says, rise up. He's got the red and the black. Is sitting in here nice and early. Mad Scientist says, good morning. T. Terry says, good morning, my guy. Right back at you. Rusty, you did. I didn't get to see you on Monday. You were probably here, but we were super busy, and I didn't see everybody's chat, but I did say hello at the end because I was thinking about you, and if you were still planning on going to this game. And he says he's going to. I'm going on Sunday. So I love giving these Panthers fans stuff every year. I give them credit, though. They usually show up regardless of how good the team is. The stadium was almost full last year. God, do you remember what was it, the Mariota game where it was later in the year? It was just absolutely miserable conditions. It was rainy. It was cold. The teams were terrible. And the Panthers fans still showed out, and I was super impressed with them. So good for you, Charlotte. If you're up in North, I know this sounds nuts, northern South Carolina. If you're up in North South Carolina and you happen to cross over and go see them in Charlotte, good for you, or travel in. I was super impressed with that too. Troy. And Mad Scientist says, when I was at the 2016 NFC Championship game, I gave some Packers fans so much stuff. I was hoarse for 2 weeks. So I actually invited our publisher. I still work with them. Now I am a publisher, but at the time I was in charge of signing publishers and working with them on a day-to-day basis. But I actually had Bill Huber of Packer Report. Him and his friend, they came down and stayed with us. And that was the game after. The team I was worried about, it seemed like kind of a mental block, was the Seattle Seahawks. And I was like, either the Packers win a close one or the Falcons are just going to blow the doors off them because they're hot right now. They did. They blew the doors off them in that game. So that was one of the best runs we were all a part of. And John Harrell, he's speaking the truth here. He says, good morning, Scott and Falcons family. That's all, y'all. Says the best cornerback, the best defensive back, the best pass defense of the world is Bryce Young on his hiney. Yeah, I preached that. I absolutely agree with you. And Alan says, I made the live good morning. That's to y'all, to Dirty Bird Nation. Love this great weather in South Georgia. It has been a mild. We had some heat. I mean, it's still south and it's still summer in the south, but we had some heat, but it's been a mild summer. So every day we get closer to October is another day. I'm like, okay, maybe it won't be 98 degrees and 90% humidity for a month. So it's been just gorgeous. Terry Clark, good morning. Manuel Gonzalez, catching live from Arlington, Texas. That's awesome. It's bright and early for you. Welcome in. So appreciate you being here and joining us. And of course, Michael Ronquillo, the Ronk, the Sunrise. He's always here with us on all the shows. And he's over in Arizona. So he's getting up bright and early with us too, and certainly appreciate it. And then let's see. Got a new member already. He's getting his bird on there. German ATL fan became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Certainly appreciate everything that you are doing with us. And Ricky Smith finally, and then we'll get into some news here. It says Rise Falcons fam, pulling a 12-hour shift, so I'll be in and out, Scott. We'll appreciate you being in. And then obviously this stays live, or it stays on demand. We get probably 3 or 4 times views on demand that we do live. So leave a comment. We're always there. We'll check them out. And Harry Marshall Woody says, please can our D play similar like this every week? So that is a great hoping point, is to play, because right now it's been 2 weeks and it's a small sample size, of course. And no, the Falcons aren't going to be as good every single week as they were against the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings had a hand in that. And I don't mean to say this, too negatively, but their ineptitude was part of it. But the Falcons, we've preached this since the first day I went to training camp and watched them. It's an attack-minded team now. Attack. Not backpedal and spread out and just hope to contain. It's an attack-minded team now. Now, in the second half, they changed up a little bit, but I think they felt like they had the Vikings number. But would they have 5 sacks in the first half? First time since 2007 or something along those lines. It took them. They had 6 sacks last week, and I think they only had 10 sacks after 11 games or 11 sacks after 10 games. It was an historically bad pace, historically. And they were doing it by getting with 4 guys, with 5 guys, but they weren't having to send the house. They weren't sending jailbreaks, the old grit splits. They were beating guys on the edges. Jalen Walker was beating his tackle. James Pierce Jr. was beating his tackle. Leonard Floyd was beating his man. Brandon Dorless was beating his man. Rook was making some moves in there. David Onyemata was beating his man too. It was a team effort, and there were some good one-on-one things. And do we end up with someone in Atlanta that has 15 sacks? Maybe not. But is there a chance that the Falcons could break 45, get to 50 sacks? Maybe so. So it was definitely a team effort on that. Dwan is back in. Dwan, one of our super chat members last week. You're killing it for us this week. Thank you, sir. Says, good morning, Scott. Why do they discredit our pass rush talking about the injuries of our opponents? We have injuries too. This defense is real and the pass rush is realer. Rise up. All right. If you go to ESPN Falcons page, they do, or just ESPN football, and I might write this up later on Falcons SI. It says, is it a Mirage or not. And they chose the pass rush for the Falcons. And Mark Raimondi, who they count on their beat writers to do this. So Mark Raimondi is in Atlanta. He is writing Falcons every day. He says it's a mirage, sort of. And I'm okay with that. Are they going to get 6 a week? No, of course not. Will they finish? Because he put it, I like how he wrote this, the third highest total, which is correct because they're like tied for 5th because there's like 3 teams tied with 1 more sack. So they are 5th in sacks, but it is the third highest total. I like how he wrote that. Will they finish there? Probably not. They're not going to get J.J. McCarthy and 6 sacks every week, which is where they are now. But are they going to finish better than they were Are they going to be a legitimate pass rush? Yes. Are they going to be able to affect the quarterback? Yes. Are they going to be able to routinely put pressure on the quarterback? Yes. Are they going to be one of the top 3 sack artist pressure teams in the NFL? I would say probably not. So I understand where he's coming from on that, but I want to see more, and this week necessarily isn't going to prove it to me. Bryce Young's taken 4 sacks so far. They don't have much of a running game. The Falcons have the chance to pin their ears back and go get them again. But when you say Dwan, and this is why it matters so much to me, it's like, oh, the Falcons haven't played anybody. I don't care. The Falcons haven't been anybody. So you look at, let me pull up the 23 schedule because y'all have heard me say a bunch, and we do have a lot of new people, so maybe you haven't. The 23 schedule was historically easy for the Atlanta Falcons. It was historically one of the easiest schedules, if not the easiest schedule that they'll ever have and ever see again. And they started that season, Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young's first start. Green Bay Packers, it was Jordan Love's second start. And then the Detroit Lions, let me see, because I feel like there was something about that game as well. But let me see real quick. Let me hit the box score. I felt like there was something going on with that game, but they just got beat pretty handily in that game. So I think Goff was okay on that one. I'm in the wrong spot because it's not showing me. Jacksonville Jaguars, but then they get the Houston Texans, and they had a rookie quarterback. Was it? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused on this now. The box scores are hard to find on this one. Box score. I thought that was the game Will Levis went to the. No, it was rookie. It was C.J. Stroud with an early. He was a rookie quarterback too. So it was another rookie quarterback on that one. Then they get to, was it the Minnesota Vikings? Am I mixing up my years on this? Because and it was 24. What was the year that the Vikings came in with? No, it was Minnesota Vikings. I'm getting the Texans and the Titans mixed up again. The Minnesota Vikings come in with a guy making his first start ever. Will Levis making his first start ever. And then Josh Dobbs comes in for the Vikings. So, and they didn't win all those games. Those are games that they should have won. So not only were the teams they were playing by, they were playing new quarterbacks, like 6 of their first 8 weeks of guys that are making either their first or second starts ever. So beat the guys that are being in front of you. And yes, there's injuries everywhere. You're talking about injuries on offense. If Drake London's healthy, if Darnell Mooney's healthy, if Caleb McGarry's healthy, is this a 22-23-6 game, or is it 35-40-6 as much as they dominated it? There's injuries all over the place. The NFL guys, they can't and they won't use that as an excuse. We'll talk about it. But we've seen Atlanta go in against these type of teams and play down to them. They didn't play down to them. Now, were they perfect? No. We talked about the red zone offense. Raheem Morris talked about the red zone offense. It's obvious. They were 0 for 4 in the red zone. Their one score in the red zone was the final one, which was Tyler Algier, when they said, come on in, and we want the ball back and maybe get a chance at an onside kick. So that was 0 for 4 in reality, if not statistically, in the red zone. That's got to be better. It does. There's no harm in saying that. That's okay. It's got to be better. But why are they talking about it, the injuries? Because people want to make excuses, and they want to rationalize. And frankly, if they aren't ready to buy in on the Falcons, they're going to use that as a reason why they're still not bought in. That's okay. None of that really matters. None of it really matters. It's not going to, what someone is saying, a person like me is saying, isn't going to change what happens on the field on Sunday. Oh, they're only 28th in the power rankings. So what? The power rankings don't win games. They reflect your winning. They're reactionary. They're not predictive. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but I agree with you on that one. I want to say hello to some more folks. Psalm, good to see you. He's out in California. I know you're coming in from a long way. Maurice, he says, I'll be moving over to YouTube. I watch on both. YouTube is better for content creators, for podcasters and stuff than Facebook. Facebook's just made it hard for us to reach you. I'll have 2,500 views and 1,000 hours, 5,000 hours per episode on YouTube on 10,000 followers. I've got 30,000 followers over on Facebook and I'll get 500 views. I mean, we're not stupid. We'll go where the people are, where we're getting our views and stuff. So certainly appreciate y'all. Corey, I missed you on Monday. Did I? I did not mean to. Well, let me see if I can find it. I've got my page up right now. So let me see what came through here. Corey, here we go. You're right. I did, and I apologize. Thank you for the note with a $5 super on Monday. Came in, I think, as we were coming in late. I did miss you. I apologize. Corey said last week, he says, I said 1-4 before the bye. I will certainly take 2-3. But the bye, there's only 4 games before the bye. Still saying 10-7 on the year. Let's not overreact the other way after one win. RIP Charlie Kirk. That's a different conversation that we're not going to get into right now, but I think it's safe to say rest in peace when someone is sent out the way he was. But right now, it certainly feels the possibility 3-1 going in. The Falcons are favored. They're favored going into Carolina, and Jaden Daniels is banged up, and it's a home game. I mean, let's not look too far ahead. One game at a time and all that stuff. We're allowed to look farther ahead. We're allowed. That's what we do here. I don't want the team to do it, but it's okay if we do it here on the show here. And good Lord, how often have we said the Falcons should do this, should do that, and then they don't our whole lives, right? We know. But they are favored this week against a team that they match up well against. The Carolina Panthers don't run the ball all that well. And the Falcons now have lots of pass rushers. What's your worry about the Falcons defense? That they're too light, and people will be able to run and dictate second and short, third and short, be able to run on them. That's probably not going to be the Panthers. The Panthers aren't running the ball worth a damn right now. Keep them in second long, third and long, and now I can send waves of pass rushers at you. It's a good matchup defensively. And then, and then defense and special, or a running game and special teams with good defense wins you a lot of games, especially against bad teams. I don't need Michael Penix to go out and throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns to beat the Carolina Panthers. I need him to take care of the ball, run the ball, play good defense, and play good special teams. A very similar formula to what they had against the Minnesota Vikings. I think one of the differences is you will have to throw the ball a little more. You can't just run right up the middle against A'Shaun Robinson and Derek Brown the way you had the success in running against a Brian Flores defense, which is uber aggressive. Derek Brown and A'Shaun Robinson will clog up the middle a little bit better than they were able to in Minnesota. So let's good comment. Sorry I missed you, Corey. Appreciate you coming back in. Let me see here as I get back through. Jay, good to meet you. I feel like this is a newer name. Jay Shep. Jay says, all right, Scott, do you believe the defense can sustain this level of play? And do you see any difference in scheme in these upcoming weeks with AJ possibly missing some time? I'll be a little surprised. He's listed as questionable. I'll be a little surprised if AJ plays this week. And I think you drop into more zone. The Falcons were very zone heavy. I think they were in zone 75% of the time. And that might have a little bit to do with they were playing with a lead. Wow, that's fun. They were playing with a lead, and the pass rush was getting after it, and then AJ was out, so they were a little bit more zone heavy. So yes, Jay, I think they play a lot of zone anyway, but I think even with your best man corner out of the game, I think they reverted back to playing a little bit more zone, which I'm fine with. I like, as long as you tighten things up when you're going to send pressure. Don't play a deep third cover 3 backpedaling zone if I'm sending 5 pass rushers, like we saw last year. So, move things up, make the adjustments, make them. I think the Falcons could have another pretty productive. Is it sustainable week to week? You're not going to get 6 sacks every week. Can you affect the quarterback every week? Yes, you can. Not everybody's going to be a rookie quarterback taking all those sacks. Bryce Young will take some sacks because he's a guy that wants to try and extend the plays and use his legs. Those guys can beat you running the ball. They can beat you extending the plays, but they also take more negative plays. So it's up to the Falcons to make sure that they limit the scrambles for first downs, the scrambles for extended plays, throws down the field, and that's where zone helps. It's hard to stay in man coverage for 6 seconds while the quarterback is scrambling. In fact, it's impossible. So, if you got a scrambling quarterback, you might play a little more zone heavy for that reason. Another reason is the camera behind the quarterback you see all the time now, and Baker Mayfield helped win the game again on Monday night. In man, you turn and run with your guy, and it opens up the lanes. And if the quarterback sees that, he's just going to chase him on down the field. So with a mobile quarterback, you probably want to play a little bit more zone. So good to see Larry. Good morning. Hope you are doing well. Cody is coming in from Augusta. Hope you are doing well as well. And now he says, clearly, I don't expect 6 sacks a week. John asks, good to see you, John. He says, who do you put in place if AJ can't go? This week they put in D. They put in D. Alford, and he got more times in the zone. And it's not going to be as much man coverage if AJ can't go. And I'm not sure, we haven't seen as much yet to know just how heavy Ulbrich wants to play zone week in and week out. You can't tell based on 1 week against this team, because it's going to vary for team to team based on how things are going. Angel Reyes and Hell, good to see you. Good morning, Scott. Looking good in our red and black jerseys, but I think blue is your color. Rise up. Well, thank you, my friend. And there's a reason we're going all blue today. It is Champions League. Chelsea is back in Champions League today against Bayern Munich. It has been a while, so blue is the color today. So we're going with that one. It's been a while on that one. And Jay, who is just about my age, and was, let's see, what year was that? Was the Too Legit to Quit team? Was that 91, Jay? You were probably 18. I went to high school with Jay Gribben over at Pope High School in East Cobb, and that was a Too Legit to Quit team with it was kind of a circus with Jerry Glanville and all that, but it still was fun. It was fun. And Sam is right as far as the injuries on the offensive line. I think Carolina will be missing their guard and their center. Yes, they will. And they already have trouble protecting, and they already have trouble running the ball. Their offensive line is beat up. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. We've seen too many times where the Falcons go in and play down to their competition. I mean, the Falcons haven't been great, but they've been better than the Panthers for like this stretch of 3 or 4 years. And I think the series is even. I think they may have swept them 1 time in the last 4 seasons. And they've been better than the Panthers every year. So, or at least not as bad as the Panthers. So, yes, take care of business. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, they're injured. We'll put our backups in too. No, beat them. It's what you do. So, yes, do not play down to your competition. Desmond Ritter's turnovers killed us early and often and late and all the time. Yeah, and it wasn't just the sheer number of turnovers from Desmond Ridder. It was the timing of them. He was a red zone menace. He wasn't throwing an interception on 3rd and 17 from midfield and giving the ball back to him on their 25. He was turning the ball over inside the 20s on the Falcons 20s or in the red zone on the other side. He was a red zone menace. And yes, thank you. It was, I for some reason, it wasn't clicking on this in my brain anyway, as I was looking at the schedule. That 2023 team was the year that the Falcons played either a backup quarterback or a rookie or somebody making their first appearance, and they still went 7-10. I'm like, it was going to cost somebody, at least a few people, their jobs, and it did. It cost Arthur Smith his job, cost Desmond Ridder his job. Speaking of a little news, I want to get into some of that. I mentioned it earlier. Some of the news with some former quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy did not escape unscathed in that Falcons game after running the ball a bunch, scrambling around a lot, and 6 sacks. And I think he did an ankle in that game, and he's gonna miss 2 to 4 weeks. They elevated Carson Wentz to the starter, and that means that Desmond Ridder is now their backup quarterback. They signed him from their practice squad at their 53, so Desmond Ridder is 1 snap away from taking snaps for the Minnesota Vikings, depending on what happens with Carson Wentz. So it's just, to me, it's just always interesting how that one has been working out, where, you know, I saw as bad as J.J. McCarthy was struggling, you know, who was trending on X was Kirk Cousins during that. It's like, oh, he should just switch locker rooms now. They shouldn't let him leave the field. All this stuff from Minnesota Vikings fans. And then Falcons fans saying, yeah, come get him. We'll take $20 million and a 3rd round pick. That it ends up being Desmond Ridder, who is now on the Vikings roster. On the other side of things, in 10 days, time flies. I want to say in 2 weeks, but it's not. It's in like 10 or 11 days. When the Falcons play the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to miss this week, which will put him probable/questionable for the Falcons game. I think he should be okay for the Falcons game. But you know who starts for the Commanders this week is going to be Marcus Mariota. Now, when we started talking about players lying about being hurt, and I say this happens constantly, it's expected in the NFL, Major League Baseball, as a professional, to play hurt and keep your mouth shut about it. It's expected. Marcus Mariota did the same thing his year. As soon as they said, okay, we're benching you, and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm hurt, and my wife's pregnant. See you later. Now, I don't know that there's going to be too many former players that are looked upon negatively as much as Marcus Mariota. Playing hurt is one thing. Playing hurt and then, hiding it. Like I said, I expect that. But then admitting to it, oh, I'm leaving now if I'm not going to start. I'll play hurt, but if I'm not going to play, I'm not going to stay. That's freaking weak. Man, that's weak. That is absolutely weak. So, but Marcus Mariota looks like he's going to start for the Commanders ahead of the Falcons game next week. Carrie, good to see you. Hope you are doing well over on X's. Good morning, Scott. Hope you are doing well. Feeling confident about Sunday. Yeah, so am I. So is Jay. 3-1. This weekend, we'll see. The Commanders, for some reason, the Commanders have just had the Falcons number. I think they've won 5 in a row, including in the last 4. And they haven't been very good either. They were good last year. They were a playoff team last year. But 21, 22, 23, they were not a good team. 0-3, including in this place behind me, including a couple of those games were in the Benz. So kind of like the Steelers last year, when we were talking about, oh, this is a tough game, and people were like, oh, history doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the Falcons have beaten the Steelers like 3 times in 40 tries. It matters. It shouldn't, but it does. The Commanders have had the Falcons' number. It's time to change that. The Panthers have snuck out a win against the Falcons the past couple of years when they were not the better team, in theory. Right now, I don't think it's a hot take to say to Commanders fans, if Commanders fans were in here, the Falcons are a better team than the Panthers. I'm sorry, I said Commanders. Panthers. They're not a better team right now. This is a game the Falcons should win. They match up well against them. They run the ball better. They stop the run better. Bryce Young has had a J.J. McCarthy moment where he was awful for 6 quarters, and then all of a sudden gets hot as it's 27-3. And the team and the Cardinals back off, and he gets hot, and all of a sudden, oh, Bryce Young is back. Now, I don't think they're saying that this year. Not yet, anyway. But a lot of that is that a mirage? Yeah, I'm not putting too much stock in that. I want to know what you're doing when the game is on the line and the pressure's on, as opposed to, oh yeah, Michael Harris has been the best hitter in baseball now that the Braves are 40 games out of first place. Okay, I'm not as interested in that. That I want to see what happens when you're contending, when you're in a game, not when you're down 27-3 and the other team is kind of switched off on that. So this is a game the Falcons should win, but we'll see. Alfred coming in, and I'm going to take a slug of coffee on this real quick, Alfred, to help soothe my throat a little bit. He says, hey, Scott, I'm here to eat some crow. I hated the Ulbrich hire. I found every reason in the offseason, preseason to focus on what I thought were negative indicators, and I was completely wrong. The defense looks brand new. Well, I mean, let's not coronate the defense yet as the best defense ever. There's still a long way to go. But what I tried to, and again, y'all hear me say this all the time, there's no such thing as unbiased. There's no such thing. And the fact that Ulbrich was part of the Falcons staff that failed under Dan Quinn, it's a bias. It biases us. Oh, great. We're bringing him back. If you had just taken his resume, let's say he had spent that time with another team and had middling success, and then he went to Robert Saleh and the Jets, and I look at his resume with the Jets, brother, this is going to be one of the hottest coordinators in football. You have to mix those. So you try and what people really mean by unbiased is, do you recognize your bias, admit to it, state it, and then try and make, and then try and weigh in all sides. I liked the Ulbrich hire. Was he going to be my number one choice? Probably not. I don't remember all the coordinators as well, honestly. I don't. So apologies. But looking at it objectively, one, he did really good working for a good defensive mind in New York. Did really good in New York for a bad organization. He had some success there. And two, I knew he wasn't going to be as bad as Jimmy Lake. So it would be impossible. It would be impossible. It was going to, are you getting better with this hire? Is this the best you could do? That remains to be seen. Was this the best hire you could make? We don't know that for sure. What I will tell you, positively speaking from my chest, is that Jeff Ulbrich was going to be an improvement on Jimmy Lake. So did you get better? Yes. Okay. That's what I'm looking for. Now, let's sit back and watch how much better. And y'all have heard me say before, I feel like the offense should be pretty steady. This offense should be good over the course of 17 games. I still believe that. They're not scoring quite as much, but they're still like 10th in total offense right now. So they are moving the ball. They're not putting up the points so like we would want them to. And I think part of that has been the injuries to the wide receivers, protecting your right side a little bit. Bergeron not playing up to par. But the defense, to me, is the difference between this is an 8-9 team and this could be a 12-5 team. This is a 7-10 team, or this is a 12-5 team and a legitimate contender. It's the defense. The defense is the wild card. The wild card for me here. Let's see as we go through. Yep, Corey, good to see you again. Apologies for missing the Super. The Supers members, y'all are number one on the list here, and I apologize for going back that one. Big E, good to see you. It's been a while. Miss y'all on Broncos for breakfast. Hope you are doing good. JB, good to see you as well. He says, I do need to see Mike break out the season. I think the run will be there regardless. And yeah, I put up the spray chart from the game, and Penix threw like one pass beyond 15 yards, and he didn't have a completion beyond 15 yards. Is that Michael Penix? Is that Michael Penix? No. That game was an anomaly as far as when we look back at the stats. And one of the differences, though, in his stat games is they won. They won. So they were able to manage the game. The times where Michael Penix has come back and thrown the ball great and pushed fourth quarter drives, they've been losing those games. They've been losing them. And I'm not putting it on Michael Penix. I'm saying that they didn't need Michael Penix to force the issue. They didn't need him to be a hero. And you'd rather be in that situation. It's nice. And we said that about the kicking spot last week too, didn't we, JB? Which is harder to find? A guy that can engineer 2 fourth quarter come up from behind scoring drives, or a kicker? Because right now the problem was the kicker. The hard guy to find is that one that can engineer 2 scoring drives in the final 5 minutes, 2 come from behind drives in the final 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Falcons have that guy. They got that guy for sure. Ski, good to see you as well. Troy Green, there's some talking here about Pitts blocking, and Pitts did do a much better job blocking. Franks is doing a good job blocking. And then Charlie Warner was in on 86% of the snaps. Now, that will get called 12 personnel, which just kind of annoys me, which means 2 tight ends because he's on the field with Pitts. Pitts isn't lining up at tight end. Every once in a while, he will line up tighter, but he's still off the line of scrimmage in like an H-back role. He's not lining up at tight end. So to call it 12 personnel to me is disingenuous. It just means that Charlie Warner is on the field. Well, that's good. It's still 11, which to me is one running back, 3 wide receivers, and 1 tight end. That's 11 personnel. 12 personnel is 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. When Kyle Pitts and Charlie Warner are on the field, they're calling that 12 personnel. It's not. It's not. Kyle Pitts is playing wide receiver. He's playing wide receiver the same way Drake London is, and Drake London blocks his ass off too. So, and he lines up in the slot, and he lines up tight, and he does all the same things that Kyle Pitts is doing. But Pitts is getting after it, and it is fun to watch on this. Michael Quintana, Falcons fans feel this way. He says, I try not to get too excited because of the Falcons, but it's hard not to get excited because it's the Falcons. And you should be excited, you know, and I see some people in there. I posted on Facebook. I posted on X. The Falcons are number 2 in scoring. They're number 2 in total defense. They're number 2 in turnover differential. They're number 5, and then they're with the 3rd highest total in sacks. Dude, that's awesome. You know, we're not saying this is the 85 Bears, but progress. You should be excited about that. You know what else is exciting about that? Let's go through the left side. Let's go through the defense. Rook, Dorless, Walker, Watts, Bowman, Pierce. That's 6 guys off the top of my head. And I'm probably forgetting somebody out there. That's 6 guys off the top of my head that are in their 1st or 2nd year. Nice. Investment. They've made investments in the defense. It's paying off. You can make investment. It doesn't always pay off. They've made investments. Those are 6 guys that are in their 1st and 2nd year, and the Falcons defense is playing well. That's exciting. That's exciting. Hell's that. Good to see you. Love your work, Scott. Rise up, my dog. Well, thank you, my friend. Hope you are doing well. It's a very cool avatar profile picture that you got. Thank you so much. Hope you are doing well as well. Good morning, Scott. This is from Chris, one of our OGs. He's been with us from the very beginning when we were lucky to scratch 100 views a week. So, Chris, it's good to see you. Nice getting the win on the road. Too bad we lost at home. Yeah, but, you know, that loss isn't going to define the season. You know, as we talked about, Chris, the Falcons didn't miss the playoffs because they lost the Steelers last year. The Falcons lost the playoffs because they lost 4 in a row in the middle of the season and blew a 2.5 game lead in week 11 last year. That's why they missed the playoffs. Kudos to Ulbrich for getting the defense to look so good, and they play very well. Yeah, and there will be times. There will be times. We mentioned I would rather see more big plays against if it means the team's going to be more aggressive. So what happened in the Buccaneers game? They get up and they went down and they scored pretty quick. It happened. Big play. That's a trade-off I'm willing to make to see an attack-minded defense, because over the course of the long haul, I think it's going to pay off. That was Billy Bowman's first game. That was Xavier Watts' first game on the defensive secondary. I'm not blaming them, but going toe-to-toe with the Buccaneers, who pulled another rabbit out of their hat, and talk about 2 good road wins to start the season for the Buccaneers. They're going to be a handful again this year in the South. At Atlanta, at Houston Texans, and they're 2-0. That's a nice start for the season. But yeah, 1-1. Now you're favored because I'm not sure they were at the beginning of the season. Now you're favored against Carolina. It was too soon to re-anoint Bryce Young as the next guy, as he's back or he's the number one and he was worth all the. It was too soon for that. And then the Commanders at home. That looks like a winnable game too. Going into the bye week, get everybody nice and healthy. Especially right now, you're not going to get your tackles back that fast. But maybe I can add some more defense. Maybe Troy Anderson coming off of week 5, week 6, and then AJ Terrell, and then the big ones that I think you can count on. At least with what's happening currently is Drake London and Darnell Mooney. There's no way those guys were 100% in that game against Minnesota. No way. Absolutely no way. Carrie's a City fan. Says good luck to Chelsea today. Thank you. Hopefully Palmer can get back to goal scoring for him. I'm excited for UCL. Yep. City plays tomorrow. Champions League is awesome. It is one of the coolest events, and we won't get into that today, but Champions League is really one of the cooler events in sports. Jack coming in. He says, I'd rather see Natron over D. Both can't tackle really well, and Natron looks better in coverage. And then I think you'll probably get a dose. Wouldn't surprise me to see CJ Henderson possibly get elevated, a practice squad elevation, depending on this week. So we will see. And Keith says, Scott Kennedy, the defense continue? So I read that backwards as the defense will continue, and we'll see. But Keith, will the defense continue? The defense will continue to prove that they are a much improved unit over last year. That is a promise. They're better. How much better? I don't know yet. We don't know yet. Is this a type of defense that can squash an overmanned team? Yes. Yes, it is, because it's an attacking defense. Now, the worst thing you can do against J.J. McCarthy is be passive, is no pass rush and sit back and let him get comfortable. It's the worst thing in the world you can do for him. Bryce Young right now is not comfortable. He doesn't have a running game. I'm going to probably make them run the ball early, back off just a little bit, and then in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, I'm pressuring the heck out of him. I'm not rushing him with 3, with 4. I'm putting pressure on him and keeping him in long. As Troy says, Dorless is a violent guy that is bigger and quicker than I thought. And Troy, I think he dropped to the 4th or 5th round. Dorless did. He was at Senior Bowl, and they had him more out as an end. And I was like, he's not quick enough for that. And I don't remember what he weighed at the time. So I thought he was a little bit of a tweener. But these are the kind of tweeners I like. He's about 295 now and still not quite quick enough to play outside, but hella quick enough to play in a defensive tackle. Dorless looks fantastic. Dorless, to me, looks a little bit like probably a better version of what the Taquan Graham looked like pre-injury. Taquan was an underrated player on a bad Falcons team. And Dorless right now is a young player on an ascending Falcons team that looks really good. Those are the kind of people that the national media start getting onto and giving those guys their flowers. Says Troy Green says Root got put on skates against Tampa. Looks like he took it personal and was timing the snap a lot better last week. Troy, I'm going to hit this coffee and then I'm going to get back to it. Rook was okay against Tampa. I didn't think he was bad against Tampa. Who I thought was bad against Tampa was David Onyemata. David Onyemata, I thought, had a bad game against Tampa. He looked phenomenal against Minnesota. He looked great against Minnesota. Now the interior line's going against reserves at guard and center. Good luck. Good luck. And it's not even just that, because it's like, well, one guy has a bad game. There's not a Derek Brown out there, but they've got 4 guys that are probably better than your next guy. Ashawn Robbins is really good too. So, but you don't want to play interior lineman more than really 50% of the snaps. So that means half the time on the field, there's a huge drop off or you're playing a guy too long and he starts getting tired in the second half. The Falcons aren't going to have that problem right now. LaCale London looked really good in there as well. And when TQ comes back, I'm looking forward to seeing him out there. But they're sending waves of guys with Floyd, with Ebiketie, with Pierce, with Walker. Oh, by the way, you don't know where the hell Diablo and Caden Ellis are going to be coming from. Oh, and while I'm looking at them, wait a minute, how did I just get hit in the ear hole? Oh, that's Billy Bowman coming off the nickel. There's waves of guys out there, and it's really fun to watch. Let me see here. Rusty says Bengals, Scott, not Minnesota. I'm not sure which one that was. Apologies. So I've moved on, and I'm actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and kind of start working my way up, because I am like, as I'm going down the chat, I'm like 20 minutes behind trying to get to a lot of y'all's topics and stuff. And TJ says, putting London out there with Onyemata was an adjustment. I noticed for the 2-4-5 to help the run defense early versus Tampa, London didn't play. LaCale, he played some. And when they were in the 2-4-5, it was in second. I'd see them out there in 2nd and 8. I didn't see it in 1st and 10. So 2nd and 8, but they did get bigger. LaCale gives them a bigger version out there. And Onyemata was definitely better. And I didn't look at it for sure, but my gut tells me he wasn't lined up as far inside, and moving just a shade outside helps him split gaps and use his quickness on this a little bit more. Xavier Littman, good to see you. He says, good morning, Scott. Where can you see Troy Anderson fitting in when he returns? That's a great question. It's going to be tough. It will be, because you don't rotate your linebackers that much. They'll play you rotate your front 5, but your back 6 or 7, depending on what formation you're in, you do not rotate your defensive backs hardly at all. There might be a cornerback, a 5th or 6th corner who comes in for a linebacker, but one of your linebackers, and a lot of times now both of them, are on the field for every snap. So what does it do? Well, it helps with depth, for one thing. Pray everybody stays healthy, but they don't. And if you get dinged up a little bit, let's say Diablo or Ellis gets a stinger and needs a series off. Okay, well, here comes Anderson. So where can I see him fitting in when he returns? As the 3rd guy who helps back up Diablo. Are you taking Diablo off the field right now? I'm not. Are you taking Caden Ellis off the field? No. But I could then go to maybe more of a 4-3 at times, Xavier, if I wanted to, where I could have my 4 big defensive linemen, a true 4-3 with 3 linebackers, because right now there's almost no situation where they're going with 3 linebackers. So that's where he could absolutely help. When they want to do that, you'll see either Billy Bowman lining up tight as an outside linebacker, or we've seen Xavier Watts, one of the safeties, creep up and line up as an outside linebacker. Now, they're safeties, but they're in there where they are lining up is basically an OLB. They might not have to do that. They might not want to do that, but they kind of have to right now. Instead, I'd rather put 245 pounds of Anderson out there instead of Watts or Bowman. So they might do running situations. You go a little bit heavier, and I go a single high safety, or I go a 4-3-4 instead of everything right now is just 2 linebackers, because they don't. Bertrand's okay, but I don't really think they want him out there. He's this isn't a shot at Bertrand, but athletically, he's not what Troy Anderson brings if he can get out there. And if he's not, well, we've seen how they can adjust. Billy Bowman is a big part of that. And then Xavier Watts and Jesse Bates creeping up closer to the line of scrimmage is another part of that as well. Real quick, and then we'll get back to the chat. I mentioned the PFF grades. I don't know how much y'all pay attention to that. I like to look at them. And I was a director of scouting at scout.com, so I was in charge of ranking almost 2,000 players for high school football recruiting, putting the stars next to their name, 2,000 players. Do I do that by myself? Of course not. I have a team of people that submit rankings, then we work them up from there and get them in order. Not everybody grades the same. And you have to know that when you're going in. I had guys that were tough graders, and then I had guys that wanted everybody to give everybody higher rankings and higher stars than they deserved. It happens, and you've got to balance that out. That's what your job is as the director of scouting. PFF, you think of it as a single entity, but it's not. It's made up of individual people who are grading the different teams. And right now, the guy who is grading the Falcons game is harsh. He is harsh. So what that does is it makes it almost impossible for me to look at his numerical grade and compare that to the rest of the NFL. Because after this week, the Falcons, had 4 turnovers, 6 sacks, didn't give up a touchdown, 6 points, held the team under 200 yards, and their overall numerical grade was a 68. And they only had one player over a 71. Now, that tells me that you're a tough grader, because when I looked at the order of how the players were ranked based on how they performed, I thought it was pretty good. This guy had the best day. Onyemata was way up, et cetera, et cetera. But the numerical grading was super harsh. It's almost like add 10 points to every single one of these grades if you want to compare them to the rest of the NFL. And I think it needs to be addressed. I'm not saying there's a bias. I just think it's that the person that's doing those gradings is much tougher than other people on that one. So wanted to hit on that because I have been critical and I will continue to be critical of what they're doing, because I did it for 15 years and I had to take all that crap too. Falcons are up to around 15 on both power rankings on NFL.com and ESPN. I think that's a good number for them right now. They moved up last week after going toe-to-toe with the Buccaneers and losing a game that a lot of people, including the Falcons, probably thought they should have won. And they moved up 2 spots, as they should have. They went from 19 to 17. And this week they went from 17 to 15. And then the Panthers, depending on where you look, the Panthers and Saints are 31 and 32. So they might not get a lot of big credit for beating up this team for sure. And in hindsight, I said people are looking back and, oh man, the Vikings are really bad. They're really bad. They're really bad. Well, how come all of you picked the Vikings then? So they did need to move up a little bit. And as Xavier says, yeah, there was one player that was ahead of, that was above a 71, and that was Diablo. Everybody else was in the yellow. I'm like, wait a minute now. Yellow? Are you talking about? Let's see here. Shrey, good to see you. We recognize that. I didn't necessarily recognize the name off the top of my head, but I recognize that face. So good to see you. But he says that since it's Panthers week, I wanted to ask how you felt about how the Falcons defense usually played against Cam Newton. Did they do a decent job? Oh, off the top of my head, I think they did a decent job. It wasn't like Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, I did it for a story. I looked at his career numbers against the Falcons, and his career passer rating was something like 105 against the Falcons in 13 games, which was higher than Tom Brady's career, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. I said, so it's not hyperbole to say that Jameis Winston is better than Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes when he plays the Falcons. I think for the most part, the Falcons did a pretty good job of keeping Cam Newton in check. For a guy that was a Super Bowl MVP and, at the height of his powers was one of the best players in the game. Cam was going to get his. I mean, he's one of the most physically gifted players to ever play this game. He was going to get his, but I thought for the most part, the Falcons did a good job against Cam. But Jameis torched the freaking Falcons. It was ridiculous. There's such a discrepancy. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, well, Drew Brees did really good against the Falcons. Drew Brees did good against everybody. Jameis didn't. Jameis was like a 70 career passer and then a 105 against the Falcons. That's different. But I think that the Falcons did a pretty decent job against the Panthers. The guys that always worried me, not just with the Panthers, but the Panthers were always good at this position, was a tight end. It feels like it was a Greg Olsen, and I felt like they had another one. I felt like the tight end just always was running free and scoring touchdowns and converting first downs. It felt to me like it was the Panthers tight ends through the history of their existence that have plagued the Falcons more than Cam did. Yeah, and talking about injuries, the Buccaneers suffered one too. Kalijah, I can't get this kid's name right to save my life. Kalijah Cansey is out for the year as well for the Bucs. But I hate to use a positive when talking about this, but it is a bonus for the Atlanta Falcons because Cansey just killed Bergeron. I mean, he was a menace over on that side. And he's also a big reason why the Falcons couldn't run the ball, on the interior side. So that's a blow for them. That's week 15, so they will have adjusted by then. But he is out for the year. Can't see another injury blow for the Buccaneers. Out for the game. Let's see. I think I hit on most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. On that note, let me see if we've got a couple other things in here. Again, I want to say thank you to the members that we have here because we picked up another one today. And the membership is in the description on YouTube, but I've got Dirty Bird Star, Trenton, Oblivion Empire, that's Jason, Ryan Thompson, 10 to Tango, Brian Anthony, Marcus Cook, and then Atlanta German fan joined today. So keep it going. Every little bit helps, y'all. If you have any questions on how to do that, just hit me up in the comments after the fact. But I'm going to get out of here. I think we've hit on just about everything. I guess I can finish off, and I want to hear what y'all have to say too. So go ahead and put your predictions in there. So as soon as I get done with my spiel, I can start clicking on yours. I want to show yours too. Predictions for Carolina Panthers versus Atlanta Falcons in Charlotte. I like the Falcons here. I think they match up better. I think the wide receivers will be a little bit more healthy, and they'll convert on some of their red zone stuff a little bit more. I think it's just a matter of time before they decide, hey, we're going to need to do something different at quarterback. They had to try as much as they invested in Bryce Young. They had to try. I just don't think he's the guy. But I'm going to go 27-13 Falcons on the road, and that's a cover. I think they're, 3.5-point favorites. Let me see what they are in this. And remember, I'm not going to say the whole spiel, but remember, if you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER and all that kind of stuff. This is just for fun. I don't put any money on these games. But I just like to know. Atlanta's a 5.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 43.5. I like the Falcons to cover. I do not ever, ever, ever bet on teams that I am involved with. Ever. Your emotions they cloud your judgment on this. I do not ever bet on those teams unless it's to put down insurance. Should have put $1,000 on the Patriots in 2016. That's what I should have done. And then at least if you lose, you get paid. I would have paid $1,000 to not have to deal with that for the next 50 years of my life. But I like 27-13 on that. And right now, Kiera goes 30-17. Mad Science is 27-10. Jack likes 31-20. Xavier, 24-17. Clay says 31-10. Falcons fans are feeling pretty confident about this. 30-6. That's a big one, JB. 27-10. Atlanta 31-17. Troy's going to be there 27-10. One of our great new members. 10 Tango. That shouldn't be that hard to say. 10 Tango FPV. 27-13. Psalm 24-3 Falcons. Boy, that'd be. You imagine coming out with another single digit game. You can say all you want about who you're playing, but you throw up a couple of zero. Anybody not turn in a homework assignment and wonder why you've got a 70 when in your grade? You throw up a couple of early goose eggs like this, it's going to really bring down your final average at the end of the year when people start looking, how did the Falcons have the third best defense in the NFL? They squashed these teams that are struggling, injured, and have bad quarterbacks. That's how. Antonio Langford, good to see you. 31-10. Terry Clark, 26-14. I agree with Justin. The offense is due for a big game. So he's saying 32-14, 31-17 for Joe. And JB says, got to put the extra juice on it. I call it insurance. I call it insurance. I always bet against the team. I bet to get paid if my team loses. That's how I do it. 404 Life is at 40-17. ID Denti. Is that what that is? 10 Tango is short for the idiot ID Tenti. I remember that one. And Pamela is here just in time to say aloha, which means hello and goodbye. I'm going to get out of here. I hope y'all had as much fun as I did this morning, but it is a Beautiful Wednesday. Time's flying fast here. We're already to week 3 against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. I know Falcons fans are feeling good about it. Hopefully we can come back on Monday and talk about all the improvements and all the things we're still excited to see as a tougher Washington Commanders team who has had the Falcons number the last half decade comes to Atlanta. And we're not talking about how the hell did you lose to that team again. I want to have a happy Monday. I hope y'all have a happy weekend. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next time.